Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to today's Partner Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Tech Talk. Today's topic, Project Onboarding. My name is Janice and I'm going to be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this web conference through Teams live events and the audio can be heard through your PC speakers. Today's web conference is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. If you do not consent to be a part of a recorded session, we ask that you please disconnect now. Attendees may access the web conference recording within 72 hours via the same registration link that was used to attend today's live broadcast. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, you can turn on the Q&A panel by selecting the question mark icon located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We do have presenters standing by to answer your questions throughout the session. Now, on to the show. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Senior R&D Solution Architect, Claudia Bethabold. And joining Claudia, we have from the onboarding team, we have Luciana Santos. So without any further delay, Claudia, over to you.
Thank you, Janice. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for making time to hear about onboarding customer projects to Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations. This tech talk is tailored primarily for our implementation partner and cloud solution provider community, and for the Microsoft field, such as TSPs, SSPs, Service Delivery Manager, and so on. Our goal for this tech talk is to give you a thorough end-to-end overview of the onboarding process, demo to you how we're doing onboarding today, and show you some improvements that we have planned for onboarding in the very near future. We also want to make sure that you understand how to get in touch with the Fast Track team for onboarding of customers. Lastly, I do want to share some tips and tricks with you if your customer runs into issues creating the LCS project, as we do know that this can be a little bit tricky at times. We will not go into too much detail about volume licensing and cloud solution provider programs, or we will also not cover specific implementation practices in depth in this call. This is what you can expect in the next hour from us. First, I will walk you through the onboarding process. Then I will hand it over to Luciana, who shows you how an onboarding session is conducted, including the brand new LCS project onboarding tool. Lastly, as promised, I will cover tips and tricks for LCS project creation issues. So let's dive right in. Why do we offer onboarding service to all of our Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations cloud implementation projects? We do it because we believe that if project teams get the most important concepts right at the very beginning of the project, then the start is smoother, the chances of project success are higher, and the risk for escalations later on is reduced. We kick off onboarding within a few days of LCS project creation through an email to the project team. The actual onboarding session is a remote 60-minute session that is delivered through a Skype or Teams call. It's optional to take us up on this offer, meaning that we do not block anybody from going forward if they do not want to do the onboarding call with us. But of course, we do believe that it is a great idea if the customer takes advantage of onboarding call. In the future, we envision onboarding to be a self-service activity to be completed in LCS. LCS project onboarding will become available in preview on January 21st. Starting then, we will use LCS project onboarding as part of our onboarding call with the customers. After about a week or so, it will move on to public preview. And then, based on your feedback, we expect that about a month later, it will become generally available. At that time, it will be mandatory to start the project implementation by completing the project onboarding phase in LCS. Looking at the process, we can see that onboarding actually consists of 3 sub-phases: pre-onboarding, onboarding, and post-onboarding. In each of those phases, customer, partner, and Microsoft are engaged. But there are different individuals from each team involved at the different stages. And there are some differences based on how the subscriptions are purchased and what fast track program level applies to the project. In pre-onboarding, the customer first obtains the subscriptions and they initiate the LCS implementation project. Only once the LCS implementation project exists can the fast track team, the onboarding service, kick in. Currently, this is a very email-intense process. We send an email from the Dynamics 365 onboarding account to the project team. The project team hopefully replies, the onboarding call is scheduled, and it is executed. Once onboarding is completed, the project progresses to the next stage. The customer and the partner focus on the implementation at hand, and if applicable, a solution architect from the fast track team will be engaged with the project team. The big change that we are implementing in this process right now is that onboarding itself will transition from a remote session that requires that the core project team be available at a specific hour and have all the core information being presented to them during that one session. So it will transition to a self-service activity that can be completed by the project team when it's convenient for them. It gives them access to all the information that we used to provide in a slide deck in email directly in lifecycle services. Drilling down one level deeper, let us look at each of the steps in the process in a little bit more detail. Customers and partners obtain subscriptions either through volume licensing program, for example, an enterprise agreement, or they sign up with a cloud solution provider, CSP. Partners can also obtain subscriptions through what we call internal use rights, the IUR program. Each of these programs has slightly different lead times that you need to be aware of and slightly different mechanisms to complete the purchasing and the license activation process. What is really important at that stage of the project is to make sure that the subscriptions are purchased against the correct AAD tenant. I've seen mainly two issues in the past in that area. The first one is that the customer already has other Microsoft Online services, and therefore they already have an Azure AD tenant. Then when purchasing the subscription for finance and operations, a new AD tenant gets created because nobody asked them about it. That happens mostly in the CSP arena, I must say, when the partner in Partner Center creates a new customer instead of opting to choose the request a reseller relationship in the tool. So that's a quite common problem, and we've seen this a lot over the past. The other problem that we've seen is that for big organizations, they sometimes on purpose have multiple AED tenants. And then when placing an order with volume licensing, it's really important to make sure to instruct the volume licensing reseller to pick the correct tenant for those finance and operations subscriptions. In any case, if it happens that the subscription ended up on the wrong tenant, it is possible to move the LCS implementation project, and I'll have a slide at the very end, about the issues where I go into a little bit more detail, but it does involve time and resources that at this stage should really be spent progressing the implementation instead of fixing tenant issues. That's why we really are a stickler on this topic here of being on the right tenant. The other big topic here, of course, is the initiation of the LCS implementation project. When the subscriptions have been obtained and the licenses are activated, then the customer can create the LCS implementation project, and often they do that with the help of the partner or with the Microsoft field. Once the LCS implementation project has been created, it is important that you should add the core project team members from the customer and the partner organization as users in LCS as soon as you can. And that is because then we, from the Fast Track team, can reach you. If not, we just don't know who to reach out to. As far as LCS project creation goes, the different purchasing programs have slightly different flows, how the implementation project creation is triggered. In the case of volume licensing, for example, an email is sent to the volume license from the volume licensing online service account to the administrator, and the email contains an activation link. Well, often that email, it can't be found. Nobody knows who it was sent to. It might have ended up in the junk folder. So what to do? What I want you to take away here is that as long as the licenses are active, there's always a very simple way to create the LCS implementation project. There's actually two very simple options. So option one is that the Azure Active Directory admin logs onto the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. That is what was formerly known as Office 365 Admin Center. So they log onto that tool. They have to be an admin. They will then expand the Admin Center's menu item here. And if the licenses are active in that menu item under Admin Centers, they will find Microsoft Dynamics for operations. They click on this. The other option is that the Azure Active Directory admin, they simply log on to LCS, lcs.dynamics.com. In both cases, what's really important is they do this from an in private incognito browser session, and they use their AAD admin account. Often the AAD admin account is slightly different than their regular organization account, and it should be. So once the AAD admin has logged on, then this will trigger an LCS implementation creation if the LCS project doesn't exist yet on that tenant. And the admin will be added as a project owner to the project. If, on the other hand, there is already an LCS project on that tenant, then it will simply open this project, and the AAD admin, if they are not a user on that project already, they will be added to that project as a project owner. So that is a really simple fallback. As long as the licenses are active, you can always trigger the LCS project from here instead of waiting for that email or finding that email. Okay, moving on to the onboarding phase itself. So within a few days of the LCS project creation, the Fast Track team sends an email from the Dynamics 365 onboarding email account. We give you a few days just so that you have time to set up the project, add the users, and so on. One issue that we do see at this stage of the project is that all the users have been added to the LCS project with onmicrosoft.com accounts. Those accounts usually are not email enabled. What we want you to do is to add users with their real organization email accounts, because that way our emails will actually reach the intended audience. Once the email has been received by the project team, we would like the customer to reply in a timely manner to schedule the call with us. We do make 3 attempts to reach the project team, but if we don't get a reply within 3 weeks, we close the onboarding phase and skip the onboarding call and move on. The onboarding call itself, as I already mentioned, today it's a 60-minute session in which we provide a lot of valuable information to the team, and we also collect some core data about the implementation from you. It is important to know that the right users should attend that call. So sometimes it's a bit tricky to find a time that suits everybody. And it should include somebody with access to the LCS implementation project and the permission to set up some basic data in the project. And as I mentioned before, we are transitioning this process to a self-service activity where we will still provide all the great information and the insights to the project team, but it will be in a much more scalable manner, it will be more flexible, and it will be much easier to consume. Once onboarding has concluded, the project moves on to the next stage, where the customer and the partner focus on the implementation of the solution. For projects that have more than 150 eligible seats, at that stage, a solution architect from the Fast Track team gets assigned, and they will be engaging with the project team within about 5 business days after the onboarding call has concluded. And they will stay engaged until go live. So before I hand it over to Luciana, let me just reiterate some do's and don'ts of onboarding. Do create the LCS project. Don't ask us how to do it. You know, work with the customer to get the LCS project created. Do add the key users with the right email accounts. Reply to the email that you get from us and do validate that you are on the right tenant. Do not try to submit an entry for project nomination in the project nomination tool. Nomination for Fast Track is only required for customer engagement projects. It is not required for finance and operations. Also, don't send us email to the DEX onboarding email account. I know in the past that was distributed and we asked you to do that. But now that we kick in onboarding automatically with LCS project creation, we don't need you to tell us about this project coming our way separately. It's just so much email overhead. And now two other really important aspects here are, don't implement the entire project in a partner LCS project, then have the customer buy the licenses and expect that the customer will be onboarding to the service and going live within the next 2 weeks. And I'm not making this up. So we're seeing this. And it's just we really want those projects, to be implemented within the Microsoft managed subscription from the very beginning to the go live and further on. And lastly, don't send emails to the onboarding team later after onboarding has concluded with any questions that come along the way. And we know there are a lot of questions while you're implementing finance and operations. There might be implementation questions, product issues, and so on. The onboarding team is focused on the onboarding stage. You will, there'll be a lot of teams and you will need to engage either with your solution architect, with product support, with the Dynamics community, or with other appropriate sources of guidance, information, and support throughout the project. So with this, I will hand the floor over to Luciana from our onboarding team to walk you through an onboarding call and the LCS project onboarding tool.
Thank you, Claudia. Hello, everyone. I'm Luciana from the onboarding team. Thank you for your time. As Claudia said, I'm going to take you through a very quick overview of onboarding call. It will be a very brief version, but will give you a sense of what is the content. And also I will tell you about the new onboarding tool that is coming in LCS called Project Onboarding. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the agenda for an onboarding meeting. And as you can see, we want to target 4 different areas. So first, we want you to know what are the important steps, the preparatory tasks that you need to execute before starting the project. This will now be mostly conducted in LCS. As already mentioned, this will be basically something that the project team will be doing by themselves as a self-service. In plan and execute for success, we want to share with you a few recommendations that will help you to have a successful implementation. After running several projects worldwide, we have observed a pattern that can actually create higher quality implementation. And in onboarding meetings, we want to share it with you the core topics that we have summed up. Then we give you a quick overview of the Fast Track program that you were assigned to, what you can expect, and how we are going to engage. And at the end of the onboarding deck in the resources section, there's a list of useful links that will for sure help you during your implementation project that you can share with other team members. Also, after the onboarding meeting, the presentation deck shown on the call, it's emailed to everyone, so you can refer to it every time you need to. So let's move on to the steps that you need to take in order to start the right way. Sometimes we tailor the onboarding call to the needs and the experience of the project team. So some of these might be slightly different depending on the project and the team understanding of D365 and implementation project. And before we start the setups in LCS, before we start with the wizard, with the onboarding tool, we need to go through a few preliminary precautions that need to be in place before the project even starts. The tenant, the licensing, and to set up a generic service account as the best practice. So about the tenant, as already mentioned by Claudia, it's really necessary, it's really important that you make sure that you got the subscription order against the right Azure Active Directory tenant. You want to avoid the tenant move. This can be pretty time consuming if unfortunately you need to move the license from an incorrect tenant to another tenant. And in case this happens, in case the license is activated against the wrong tenant, we advise you to stop, to correct this as soon as possible before continue implementing. And we also want to pass the information about the licenses that is always a minimum of 20 operation seats. And you need to be with a minimal license during the life of your implementation in order to not jeopardize your environment. If this doesn't happen, you will not be able to deploy environments. Also, we question if you're going to get additional license. And then we mentioned that the number of licenses and the transaction volumes are the major impact on the size of the production environment. Also, in an onboarding meeting, at this time, we usually show the subscription estimator. And we talk a little bit about it, some recommendations, and also where you can download this document from LCS. But today, for the time's sake, we will skip that part. We also bring out during the call the best practice of creating a generic service account for deploying an environment, because the person deploying today, tomorrow could be unavailable, and then nobody can access to that environment. So as a best practice, always use a generic service account to deploy an environment, and that generic service account needs to be on the customer domain. So once we go over these three preliminary precautions, we provide you with a foundation around the lifecycle service. Basically, LCS is your implementation portal. As you know, Microsoft 365 is on cloud, so you use LCS to access to your project. LCS will host your environments, your process, your methodology. We also point you to the helpful resources available in this slide. You will notice that most of the slides in the deck have links to the different resources, so you can always get additional information for each topic. For example, in this case, you can find a link to a video that gives you a good explanation about what is the LCS. It kind of gives you a navigation tutorial about the LCS project. Also, we mentioned that not only LCS is your implementation portal, but it is also the main conduit for your communications with Microsoft. It works as an interactive solution. And here in LCS, for the future onboarding calls is where we will be going to reach out the onboarding tool. And as you can see here, to access this tool, you need to click on the drop-down menu. You'll need to scroll down just a little bit and then choose Project Onboarding. Of course, before the onboarding call, we will make sure that you are informed that you will be opening your LCS project in the onboarding meeting, so we can get correct people, the people with access to the LCS project on the call. And once you open the onboarding tool, you get to the welcome screen. And here you have a brief explanation about what is the tool, how long it will take you to complete this wizard. And also, as you can see, it alerts you about the information that you need to collect before you start this wizard. So in the Getting Started with Lifecycle service, we provide you an overview of the license information that you already have from the tenant. This is also another opportunity to check if the licenses are activated against the right tenant. And also you can see that there are more additional resources over at the right that you can look at your own convenience. Just let me tell you that this is just the first version of this wizard. This tool is going to improve. For example, perhaps you'll find here more information about the tenant in the future versions. On the project overview, we would like you to edit the project name for something that is meaningful to you and to describe the project in more detail. Also, if you can provide us the project region, country, this is more related from where the team is implementing, not where the data center will be located. This is also helpful to us in case there is the need to provide you a solution architect. It will be more efficient if the time zones are similar as possible. And also, we ask you to type the name of the implementation partner. You can see here all these fields. In the project scope, you should choose the industry, the implementation type, if it is a new implementation, an upgrade, a migration from 2009, or if you are a partner implementing for your purpose. Also, if it is a phased implementation, nowadays most of the projects are doing a phased implementation. We also ask you to indicate if the project has integrations, has interfaces, and if you're implementing retail in the first go live. And this is important to provide you the right solution architect for the assessment. And to complete the setup of the project scope, we would like you to populate the number of users for the first go live. You can also see at the right side some explanatory text where you can get a little more help about what is expected in each one of these fields. And next, we move on to define the team. And here we ask you to add all the team members that will be implementing from the customer and the partner side, and to set the right security rules for them. Microsoft proactively communicates with its team members based on their role. So this is an important task that we would like you to do to not miss any communications. For example, about the Go Live checklist, updates, and so on. And to invite other users, click on the plus sign, you can see it here. You'll need to enter the email address, the project role, and here we are referring to the LCS security role. Also, you need to choose the user role, what role the team member plays in the context of the project. It's important to us because we need to tailor the communication. And also, with this new onboarding tool, you'll have a new option. Now you will be able to select to allow if the context should be used by Microsoft for communication purpose. For example, if the project has 5 project managers, but Microsoft should only address 2 of them, you can do it. You can disable the communications from Microsoft for the other 3 project managers. Also, here is where you can add the generic service account that you should use to deploy your environments. And after the team members are added and configured, they will be able to access to the LCS projects. And now that we have the team in place, we want to set up the notification for those team members. And this is designed for you to choose and to configure the types of notifications each team member needs or wants to receive. And the admin user has the privilege to set up the notifications type for other users. And to set up those notifications, you need to select the user line, click on the pencil button, and then select the notifications that will appear on the right side. And then after that, just click Done. Next, we move on to define the milestones, and this is a critical step that you need to complete. Here, you should configure the dates you believe you will complete the LCS phases. Initially, you can configure tentative dates, and you can change those dates later if you need to. It is very important that you keep those dates configured and always updated, because the Fast Track team will use those dates, especially the Go Live date, to send you information. For example, the Go Live checklist. And to configure those dates, you just need to click on the pencil button and they will also appear on the right side. Now here is where you plug in your Azure DevOps account. In this page, you should paste your Azure DevOps account URL and the personal access token. After that, you should click where it says Associate LCS with Azure DevOps and then select the project you want to use. Then, the next step, also within the Azure DevOps account topic, is to configure the work items. And this is a critical thing. Here, you need to make sure of what you're doing in this particular stage, because it cannot be modified later. That's why we have your acknowledge here. This is one of the only things you cannot edit. And as you know, it's important that you configure your Azure DevOps account, for example, to deploy your build environment. And if at this point you have not configured this account, you can jump to the next step and you come back later to conclude all these steps. And if you require a little help configuring the Azure DevOps account, remember that we have a tech talk for it. And in this tech talk, you will find the recording and the PDF. You will see that if you use these resources, it will be pretty straightforward to configure the Azure DevOps account. And usually this tech talk PDF about Azure DevOps setup as the answers to all the common questions that you might have. And now we are coming to the end of the configuration. And here we show you the Fast Track service offered that you are entitled to your particular program level. Let me show you here. And this offer depends on the eligible seats of each project. We are showing you the main offers of the Fast Track program as they apply to your project. Again, there's also more details about this topic in the right screen of the wizard. The final part of the wizard is a series of next steps. We highlight a few very important implementation guidance that we have. And even when we will have full onboarding self-service, where we will not do the onboarding calls, the 6-minute calls with every project that starts up, but we will still stay engaged. Let me show you. If you have top 5 questions for the Fast Track team, you can place them here and send them off to the Fast Track team for some resolution around these questions that you might have. We do want to onboard you with success. Next, we go through the core topics areas that you need to be aware of in order to have a successful implementation. Most of them have associated tech talks that you'll need to see in each of these next slides. And here we have a list of the recommendations all summed up here, and let's pass through each one of them. So the first area that we want to call your attention is the idea of focusing in the business process. Your implementation should be based on business process. It is something that is conducted during the analysis phase of a project. It's a basis for gathering the requirements to create a fit gap. Think about end-to-end story. It is not just by implementing by one specific model or testing a model, all is connected. So basically, this is the best way to approach an implementation of Dynamics D365. This is the next area that we approach, and here is the understanding on how to work in the correct environment. Many times the partner comes with some of this expertise. Here we give a brief explanation about the several environments available. What is your standard cloud offer? Here I'm talking about the 3 environments in green color. How you can get additional environments, head-ons, cloud-hosted environments, and local VHD images. We also highlight the importance of the environment planning tech talk that you can see in the bottom of the screen. And this is one of the most important tech talks, and we highly recommend you to reach out to it. We also bring out the whole idea of testing. It is a financial and time commitment to implement D365. So you want to make sure you test in every way possible. The testing is dependent on the extension of the project and its purpose. You can see that some of the tests are listed on the slide, for example, mock go live, integration, security, performance, and many others. All of these impacts your environment strategy. Where the tests are made makes a big difference. Then we also approach the performance topic. Performance, it is not just a matter of Microsoft giving you the right environment. It is a necessary piece that we give you the right environment, sized correctly, but it is not sufficient. Embrace the performance, take ownership on it, make sure you don't have slow queries, also that you have the proper indexes in place. The customizations are designed for scale. Also, as a part of the implementation, it is expected that customers and partners will conduct performance testing to ensure that nothing has been introduced through configurations or customizations that prevents Microsoft from being able to scale the system to meet your needs. There's a tech talk about performance. It is a really good tech talk. It goes over why you need to define performance, also how and when to do it. Basically, the earlier the better. Now about data. Data is a big part of any ERP implementation. And the last thing you want to do is to sit in front of the environments and enter data over and over again every time you test something or you redeploy an environment. So here we want you to be aware of how important it is to have a good strategy for data movement, for data management in the beginning. And here in summary, you have 3 concerns: creating data, moving data across environments, and smart data management within the application itself. Again, there are tech talks about it, different tech talks that you need to watch for each of what is your interest. For example, if it is a small company and if you only have one legal entity, well, the data sharing framework is not for you. But managing data, configuration data, and moving it across environments, that's definitely for you. Because everyone wants to go live, everyone wants to make sure their production system gets spun up quickly. And finally, we also take a look on the slides. This is the Prepare for Go Live graphic that is also available on the doc site in the Prepare for Go Live page. You can find the link also in this slide. And here you have an overview of the steps that you need to take for Go Live. For example, you can see here the Go Live assessment. That is a mandatory step that you need to take in order to get your production environment in place. Then we move on to the continuous updates that are happening. We show you how the picture looks like today. And beyond April 2019, we are going to start what we call as one version, the version 10. There is going to be 2 updates. and 2 updates per year. And this is a game changer, and just wanted to be aware that this is coming. Again, you have ongoing tech talks and several communications, several documentations about this topic for you to understand how and when this is going to impact your projects. Here, we want to make the customer aware of the existence of a big community out there. We have the Customer Advocacy Program, in which we show case studies about good implementations. So we want the customer to know that eventually we would like to them to contribute to our advocacy program in some shape or form. For example, through a video, a press interview, that depend on the individual program. And after completing this section, we go through the Fast Track program. We brief you about the 3 main objectives that we want to target with our Fast Track program. Of course, our main objective here is our customer satisfaction. How can we facilitate that process to reach the important go live date, the planned go live date in time without blocking issues, and so on. Then we also show you an overview of the program level. Here we present you the details of the Fast Track program you're assigned to. As you know, it depends on the number of eligible seats. So if the project is below 150 eligible seats, the project is entitled to the service that you see in the blue color. Actually, these services are available to all projects. But if the project is above 150 eligible seats, it is also entitled to the service that you can see in green color. And then we give you a more detailed explanation about each one of these services. For example, about the Go Live assessment in the Prepare for Go Live phase, you can see it here. As mentioned, you need to take this step in order to have the production environment deployed to you. So we also mentioned that in the top of all these, there are resources. We monthly deliver technical talks. You have documentation, the doc site, and you also have the community. And then we call your attention for each one of these resources. They are a very important layer in the Fast Track program, and they are always available to you. All of these resources are available to all customers and partners in the Fast Track program. And the links for you to start using these resources are always available in the onboarding slide deck. We also let you know how you engage with Microsoft servicing and support. Actually, you engage with these teams via LCS project. Also, when we are doing the LCS navigation tutorial, it's optional. We show you how you can create service requests and support tickets. And you also can see here in the LCS notifications, can see here an example of a small example of several notifications that we have available. Of course, the notifications that each team member is going to receive depends on what it has been configured in the wizard in the setup in the set notifications page. And in the last section of the onboarding meeting, we have the resources. And here you can find useful links that will help you during your implementation. Very important, you can use the community forum, and this forum will help you during your LCS implementation. This forum is monitored by solution architects, and you can expect to get quick answers. Also, you have the roadmap that is constantly being updated and lets you see what is being worked on. Then you have the links for documentation and other tools for e-learning, for example, the doc site, the Tech Talks page, the YouTube channel, and the customer and partner source for additional e-learning training materials. And finally, you have useful links related with documents. Very important, for example, you have here the licensing guide, a very important document. So this is it for a brief overview of an onboarding call. I will now let Claudia take over again. Thank you. Claudia, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Luciana. And let me just quickly share and get my slide deck up and running again. I want to share. Okay, can you see? So I hope you all got a, Good. I hope you all got a great overview of what we do in onboarding today and how we're going to transition this to a self-service in the future. Still, a lot of work to do on our plate, but I personally believe this is totally the right way to go, because one of the things we do struggle with is not that there's no information available, it's just often hard for the teams to find the right information. So by making more of this available in a really nice fashion in LCS itself, we hope will help the project to just really get started with much more ease. So with this, I promised you in the beginning, I'd also talk a little bit about LCS project creation issues and share some tips and tricks and where you can find help. So let's start with license activation. As I said before, if the licenses are active, it's always possible to create the LCS project from either the Microsoft 365 Admin Center or from LCS directly. And very, very rarely are there issues in that when the licenses are active. Normally that works. But what if the licenses aren't active? So the first thing I want to share with you is how to check on that. So the Azure Active Directory admin, they can log on to the Microsoft 365 admin portal, and in there, they will be able to verify under billing whether the subscriptions exist and the licenses are active. If they see an entry there for active licenses, then they should also see the Microsoft Dynamics for Operations entry under Admin Center and be able to create the project from there. But if in the Microsoft 365 admin portal, the licenses do not show, then you've got an issue, because now how do you activate your licenses? And that depends a bit on the program. So in general, I find it's easier with CSP. So if this is a CSP deal, then the customer and the partner have to check together. So the partner has to check in the partner center that the licenses for this customer on the right AAD tenant are active in partner center. If they're active there and they don't show up in Office 360 in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, then that is an issue, and you'll need to reach out to the right support channel. And if it's a volume licensing deal, one of the things I see there is that sometimes it can take a little bit longer than people expect from placing the order with volume licensing to the licenses being active. Also, if it's the very first time a customer purchases through volume licensing, there's one additional step, and that is in the volume licensing service center itself, where the volume licensing administrator needs to activate the licenses. So in volume licensing service center, there is a section pending activation. So if the licenses don't show as active in the Microsoft 365 admin center, they have to check in the volume licensing service center and activate those pending licenses. After that, they should flow over to the Microsoft 365 admin center. And again, once they're there, the project can be created. If at all something goes wrong here, it's not our team that can help you with this. It's really either the volume licensing support or the partner center support teams that you will need to reach out to. And from there, it will, the right solution will be researched and you will get help. And if at all necessary, they will, reach out to us as well. But we normally can't help you if something went wrong in volume licensing. And, those, I've put in the two generic links here from where you can access the right volume licensing or partner center support team based on your region. The next thing that I've seen issues with is the Azure Active Directory itself. And that again is, for first time Microsoft Online service customers. So if it's the first online service that customer gets from Microsoft, they usually don't have an Azure Active Directory tenant yet. So on that one, there is a sign up experience that's required. And that has nothing to do with finance and operations. It's exactly the same experience no matter which online service that customer purchases. We don't own that experience at all. We have no impact on what it looks like, but it is just a generic how an Azure Active Directory, contoso.onmicrosoft.com gets created and somebody signs up and becomes the first admin. In volume licensing, that flow is triggered through an email from Microsoft Online Services team to the online administrator per the volume licensing agreement. And we do see that sometimes it's really not clear who that person is. So you can find out from the volume licensing reseller who they put on as the Microsoft Online, as the online administrator. And that it's only that person who can do that sign up. But if you need to, you could reach out to volume licensing support and have that email be resent. That is possible. In CSP, I find it's a much, it's a slightly simpler experience there. As a partner, you can, either be the delegate admin for the customer or trigger that email to the customer right there from Partner Center and have the customer complete that Azure Active Directory sign-up experience. So that is where sometimes it's just more a question of that this knowledge isn't there or that email with the sign up link got lost. For existing Microsoft Online Service customers, they'll have an Azure Active Directory tenant already, and hopefully they know who their admin is. Issues I've seen there is more that they only have one admin, and the admin used their organization account as the administrator account, and the admin's on vacation, and now the LCS project should get created. Unfortunately, I really, I don't think one can help them with that. It's, the guidance here, just as much as it is for the finance and operations environments, is set up service accounts for such activities. Talk to your customers to have service accounts so that they don't run into the situation that if their AAD admin is on vacation, they can't create the LCS project or sign up for this. And again, if you need help, it's volume licensing and partner center support that you need to go to. And the last topic here, we've talked about this before multiple times now, because it is a big issue that we see, is what to do if the licenses ended up on the wrong Azure Active Directory tenant. We've written it all up. The instructions are here in this document, Move LCS Implementation Projects, 2 different Azure AD tenant. It can all be done without our involvement or without our dynamic service engineering or LCS teams. It's pretty much a self-service now. Even if you're live already, you can still do this. But it does take time. What I do want to call out is you will need to have your licenses active in parallel on both tenants for the time of transition, and I would count for about 4 weeks to get all of this done. If it's volume licensing, like an enterprise agreement, you will have to talk to volume licensing support. You'll have to ask them to remap the licenses from the wrong tenant to the right tenant and to give you a grace period of a few weeks to get the transition done. In case of CSP, it's easier because then you already have the license on the old tenant, and the partner can then request a reseller relationship with the right tenant, and you can do all the work, and then they can suspend the licenses on the wrong tenant. But so do follow the instructions here. What I do want to call out also is that we will require that all testing is repeated on the right tenant, because you will have to set up all your integration accounts on AD, and the user SSIDs are different. So we really want you to repeat your user acceptance test. If you've already done that on the wrong tenant, we would want you to repeat it on the right tenant just to make sure that everything still works as you saw it before. And again, if you need further help there, reach out to volume licensing and partner center support if it's about the mapping of the licenses on those tenants. And for anything else, at that stage, you can reach out to the Fast Track team as well, or to product support to help you with this. So this brings us to the end of what we had to share with you. I see we have 5 minutes left. I'll hand it to Savita and Vetrivel and Suzanne, who've been on standby answering the questions here in the background. If there's any questions that you want to kind of bring up to the entire audience, or that you want me to loop in or to weigh in on.
Hey, Claudia. So
Yeah?
all questions have been answered so far, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to, put them in the IM window. We have 4 more minutes. We are open to answering any questions.
Yeah, saw some questions around, how to get LCS project created, where the license is just procured today. From admin center, they were unable to access or get the Dynamics 365 LCS project created.
Yeah, so there is, so the two things there. There is a synchronization between the commercial tools and LCS, so that I'm not entirely sure how long that takes, but it does take a few hours at least for this to flow through all the Microsoft systems to be available. But I've seen that, like, if you purchase through CSP in general, those things flow through pretty quickly, but I can't give you an entire, like, a correct hour stage. What I do know, though, is that as of last week, Thursday, I believe, we did have an issue with the synchronization, and we have had a number of projects that got an error when they tried to create the LCS project from Admin Center. It was a insufficient licenses error. So if you're running into this by any chance, do file a support ticket. I know you won't be able to file the support tickets for LCS because LCS didn't get created. So you'll have to file the support ticket by calling. And as a partner, you know how to call Microsoft support. But if this is the issue that you can't get it created, even though the licenses show in the admin center, then do let us know through support.
Yeah, the other recent question is around any documentation or links to explain what is project role and user roles. Yeah, project roles is what you already have in the LCS, and every role, as and when you select, you can see the description in the LCS itself, which will explain you what is this role can do and what is it meant for. And the user role is what you already have in your project, like, it could be a technical consultant or a functional consultant or an architect or a project manager. That is something, self-explanatory. Hope that helps.
So there's also a question on the onboarding questions. It asks if the retail module, will it be used, or if it is a phased implementation. So the question is, do these answers affect the project setup, or only which solution architect will be assigned? Do you want to take that up, Claudia?
Yeah, I definitely can. So this is more for our information. It doesn't change the project setup whatsoever. But the questions about retail, that is really for us to have the right resources engaged and know that, for sizing also for retail projects, we still also have a second look on that. And the phased implementation, that is, for now, it's only for our information, but I can see that we'll elaborate and expand on this over time. I know in the past people complained a bit that LCS methodology isn't really optimal for those phased implementations, first go live, next go live, every 2-3 months. But for now, it's only for our information.
Okay, there's one more question. It looks like you need to complete the Azure DevOps connection from LCS in order to deploy any environment. Is that by design?
Well, let me put it this way. In the past, you've had to complete the connection to deploy development environments. You know, if you had a regular LCS implementation project, you could always deploy a sandbox environment, like a tier 2 sandbox standard acceptance test environment without Azure DevOps setup. But in order to deploy a dev environment, you always need the Azure DevOps Association. Now, one thing that has come recently that is totally different than what we're talking about today is this ability of the self-service projects. So there is a new project type that takes advantage of more self-service infrastructure, and we selectively now in onboarding a certain amount of projects get into this new project into this new infrastructure, and on those projects, even for the sandbox and acceptance test environments, you must have completed project configuration end to end before you can deploy any environment. And there are if you go to LCS, to the LCS blog, you will see a recent announcement on that specific topic. So I encourage, and we always, and that's also one thing that we do in the onboarding call, we always encourage everybody to keep up to date with the changes in LCS and read the LCS blog with its monthly or bi-monthly announcements. Okay, with this, I think we're over time, and I'll hand it back over to Janice.
All right. Thank you, Claudia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take a brief moment here and bring your attention to a link that I just posted in the Q&A panel. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference, and we ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference, have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, or you'd like to submit topics for future web conferences, this is your chance to let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And that is going to conclude today's web conference. Attendees can access the web conference recording via the same registration link used to attend today's live broadcast. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter team, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.